This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
We don't look firsthand at CVs. We look firsthand at personalities. They come for a talent show and they show off their superpower. They tell us, why they want to be at life, what life means to them, and what experiences do they want to create for live guests.
In this age of artificial intelligence and digitalization, the hospitality industry perhaps remains as one of the last bastions of a sector where social interaction comes first. Its inner workings were also thrust into the popular imagination with the hit streaming series White Lotus in recent years. So, what goes on behind the scene, and why is it a promising sector that young Singaporeans might wish to consider working in, especially amid ongoing economic headwinds? Hello, I'm Tay Hong Yi. You're listening to Headstart On Record, the show that gives a head start to your personal finance and career. Our guest today is a veteran with almost 2 decades of experience in the hospitality and real estate industry. Since 2024, she has helmed Live, one of 14 brands under homegrown hospitality conglomerate, the Ascott Limited. She is Miss Adeline Phua, and she's here to share with us about the interesting developments going on in the sector. Welcome to the show, Adeline.
Hi, Hong Yi. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here. Very exciting.
Yes, and thanks for being here, especially as I understand you're right out of a work trip from Japan, really. So it's our privilege to have you here. So maybe just to start with, perhaps I could invite you to outline what you currently do for Live and what is Live actually.
So Live stands for Live Your Freedom. I am the managing Live partner, but I'm also the vice president of business development. So in my whole title of being the managing Live partner, it's really the fun part of the brand. Again, I'm the brand guardian, the culture shaper, as well as the all-round hype woman for Live, as my team would call that. I help steer the brand globally and make sure that it stays true to its DNA while evolving with our community of creators, founders, digital nomads, and entrepreneurs who we cater to. And, they're a big part of our community. Globally today, we have 35 properties over 13 countries. So it's very exciting as we've grown the brand. It's really the job of many, many team members that are working together with me. As I believe you may have visited a Live before.
Yeah, I've stayed at a couple incidentally.
Yes, so you probably have seen us have co-working lounges. We have the communal kitchens, the Instagrammable gyms, as well as, a 24-hour laundromat for you to do laundry as if you were at home. So all the essentials that the traveler needs. And sometimes I don't know if you've experienced when you were at the Live, attending a kombucha making class or a pet adoption drive or yoga class. I don't know if you came across that.
I mean, I've seen in my couple of stays at Live properties, unfortunately, they clash with my schedule, so I didn't get to attend them myself, but I really saw it on the very packed events calendar. So actually that leads in very nicely to the next question in terms of how do you and your team keep it fresh for guests at these at your Live properties, because the Live property is not just the space, but also what your industry calls activations as well. So in terms of the fun initiatives and events, so maybe outline some of the most memorable ones and exciting ones to your mind.
I think it's a very good question, right? With a brand, we are quite young as a brand. We're 6 years, but we're looking obviously to stay on for very long. And what's most important in being able to do that is because the brand stays very, very real, right? We're very responsive. And most importantly, we find it very important to stay relevant to the community that we serve. From the brand perspective, you'll see that we draw inspiration from the local neighborhoods where they're located. We look at global cultural shifts. If you've seen Live, you'll notice a lot of life sayings in our property. You see a lot of playfulness in the design. It's really to be conversational starters. We experiment, we remix ideas, and when something really clicks, we like to scale it globally across all our properties. It's never rinse and repeat. We are market-driven. Our approach is a constant process of iteration, collaboration, and staying plugged into what makes people feel connected and alive.
So what are some of these events that you personally found really interesting ideas?
What also makes things fresh and relevant is for our people, life champions, as we call them. They are part-time general manager, but they're also part-time events or experiences curator and business owner, right? Business driver, I would say, sorry. They manage this together with a very passionate team of people, which are ambassador of buzzers in our properties as well as lifeguards. So together, our team on the ground also, filter and bring in locally relevant events or, what's going on, what's hot in the neighborhood into the property, bring the local flavor and creating that breathing social hub for all our guests.
So what it sounds like is that this is a role that thrives really on understanding what people want or what they might want and what might excite them based on all these trends and based on what they have shown as their preferences. And I imagine that's why there is a lot of really room for, firstly, improvisation, but also a lot of autonomy for that improvisation over time.
Absolutely. I mean, in the name, in the whole DNA of our brand, right? Life stands for live your freedom. So our team definitely has a lot of freedom to create experiences for the community that it builds. And it's a very core part of the brand where we want to create something unique. And, nothing's really the same because for us, people at the end of the day is at the center of what the brand is, whether for somebody that works for the brand, but also somebody who stays with us, for guests who stays with us. I think these are, that interaction that builds on top of each other to feed that whole vibe and element, which becomes critical for anybody who wants to experience or is drawn to the brand.
And there's a lot of scope for creativity as well in this really social interaction intensive sort of roles, I imagine. So, and in your position, were there any specific initiatives or ideas that were raised by your team that really surprised you as to maybe how effective it was or just the idea itself surprised you?
I have a super creative team, not only at the HQ level, but in all our properties. Just to take an example, we were thrilled last year because we received 2 Guinness Book of Record awards in the Philippines. One with Life Cebu City. They did the world's largest origami installation. And the second was the world's largest display of origami stars. So they did about 100,000 stars at our Malate, Manila property. So these were incredible milestones. What was very interesting was how they came about that. It was actually bringing about 1,000 guests, crew members, their families, and they were folding sharks over a couple of months and using every surface that they could find. They were folding, these and placing on display within the property. So it was very community driven because it was also part of a whole sustainability exercise to bring awareness or raise awareness of the endangered fresher shark population in that area for Cebu City. So this is one example. Another example was that when we, launched our first live in Penang end of last year, we worked with the organizers of the Penang Cocktail Week to host the closing of the Penang Cocktail Week for almost, I would say, just under 100 mixologists from around Asia, where they did a bar takeover of the check-in area at Live Georgetown, Penang. So these are some really, really fun stuff that they did on a Sunday night. But, these are big events, right? So on the small events, right, it's really day-to-day accumulation of what they do. We do community walks. We do eat walk tours. We do runs around, for example, Marina Bay Sands by the Funan team. There are many, many different things that we do. We've held cooking classes, we've done yoga sessions, hackathons, and, we want to create small sparks, but most importantly, they're genuine. So any event, big or small, these experiences need to drive or create impact for our guests.
So speaking of guests, were there any memorable guest stories, right? I think people are always so interested to find out what goes on behind the curtain. So maybe could you share with us any interesting guest stories or any interesting guest feedback that you have received?
We get a lot of feedback from guests where they felt their lives were impacted by services or by what our team members did, right? So we've recently did a dinner and dance in one of our properties, very interestingly, and it was actually hosted by a housekeeping supervisor of that property. So he was the MC of that party. And when we introduced at the end of the party what he did, they were very surprised and they've written us really nice messages. Obviously we've also had, guests that needed help. Our ambassador of buzzers, which is a unique role within the property, they're really the community managers. So they bring guests together. They are the ones that provide first-hand information of what goes on in the local neighborhoods. So some of the feedback that they get is that they will refer guests to different properties and they'll introduce them when, for example, we had guests who were in Penang. They were en route to Bangkok and our Bangkok team were informed. And we've made a lot of recommendations. We've told them, when you're at that property, meet so-and-so. So there's a lot of community and that binds guests, closer to the brand because they feel that whole energy and relationship building. So you get them coming back to us time and time again.
So on the more macro level then, are there any developments or trends that you find to be kind of cause for excitement that should really lead more people to consider joining the sector right now and why?
Well, hospitality, I think, is for anyone who's curious about people, about culture, and creating experiences that matter. You don't need to be the loudest in the room or thrive on small talk at the front desk because, there's a whole ecosystem behind the scenes that make the magic happen. So within hospitality, it's actually an industry where traditionally people have felt that it's tiring, it's very traditional in the sense where you just stand behind a front desk, you make beds. But hospitality is really more about that. I think it's service culture. It's also, service from the heart. It's about wanting to make meaningful, authentic encounters and bring impact to people's lives. So, within hospitality, I would say, you could be looking into functions like design, tech, you can look at branding, you can look at operations, you look at community building, events. So within life, these are how we have evolved roles, right? We don't look at front desk agents. We look at our associates or what we call life crew as guest services where, they provide a holistic support to guests for whatever they need services for. It is no longer a plain vanilla role. And the reason for that is also because associates also today want to be engaged, want to learn different things, want to have new things, want to, progress much faster. And this is a way of bringing them across where, it's about storytelling, placemaking, innovation, creating spaces where people feel seen, welcome, and inspired, more than just what they feel hospitality traditionally might be.
So it's not really just about the guest-facing roles, but I can imagine there would be people who are curious about the whole setup, right, of a property and at a corporate level. They find it interesting, but they might not find themselves to be people who are cut out to be directly guest interfacing. Is there a place for people like that?
Absolutely. Just to share, right? My team recently in January, we did a personality test just as part of our team building efforts. And it was very surprising that we have half the team was extroverts. We also had the other half that were introverts. And what was important was that different people play different roles within the team. So similarly to running a lodging facility, right, like Life, where we deliver experience-led social living, every single touch point, whether with a guest or whether back of house, creates that experience that a guest will feel. The guest may or may not see the person, but the guest will be able to appreciate what that associate or what that life crew member would have done.
So maybe what are some of the roles these associates can do? Because you mentioned events and branding as well. So maybe could you flesh out what some of these roles look like and how they might be different in other properties, other types of properties, and kind of more conventional, so to speak, offerings, right, in the sector?
Again, I really think that it depends on the brand. It depends on the organizational structure that every property might or every hotel may have. But at Life, right, what we do have, for example, in certain roles in branding, we do have illustrators, we do have graphic artists, we do have digital marketers that, are data crunchers. They crunch data and, based on trends, provide that information to our sales team, for example, to use that data to be guest-facing, to get guests into the property, right? But we also have number crunchers who are in revenue management positions where, again, it's trend analysis, it's understanding how guests use spaces, what their preferences are, and providing that information to frontline guests, associates to use that information to make guests feel better, right? So there's different ways to do that. For example, we also have our technical services team. What our technical services team does is to design and bring life to life, LIFE. Through design and through talking to our interior designers, talking to our engineers, talking to our mechanical engineer colleagues to make sure that the property is a safe space for guests to use and to enjoy within that DNA of the Life brand.
So, and then how does technology come into the picture?
So, technology is actually very important. Being a digital-first brand, for example, Wi-Fi, connectivity becomes very important. We are also, very active on social media. So what that means is also sometimes content creation from a technology perspective is to ensure that our Wi-Fi connections, our systems where our front office may use to check in or check out guests is well working to make sure that things are in place.
And on that point about a lot of support functions being those that guests might not see, I guess on that same token, that's why there's a lot of promising openings that job seekers don't really know of because their main interfacing with the hospitality sector would be as guests themselves or kind of interacting with it. So how do you all bridge that gap then in terms of reaching out to getting in the talent for all these roles?
I would like to say, with our talent at Life today, or our Life crew, we have colleagues who formerly were working in the zoos. We've had colleagues who have previously working in banks, digital agencies. We had colleagues who were kindergarten teachers before. We've also had colleagues who were designers, brand people. So there are many people from different aspects or walks of life. And the reason why they've come to Life or they've chosen the hospitality industry seems to come down to one word. It's people. And they want to create a difference. They want to make impact. And if you look at where they've come to, there are front-facing guest roles. There are also back-facing, back-of-house roles that are available. And it really takes alignment and teamwork for property to be run well. I don't know if I answered your question on point or not.
No, I think yes, you have actually, because and I like that you mentioned all that whole host of various backgrounds, because it's not just about somebody who has done a certification or a diploma or went to school in hospitality, but people also perhaps from other educational tracks or people who have been in other types of roles as well. How do you all find commonality there to draw in these people and get them really to succeed?
As I mentioned, right, I think people join hospitality because they like to be with people firsthand or like making a difference in people's lives. On discoverasr.com careers, right? That's the Ascott employment website. If you look today, we have more than 70 positions which are open. And that doesn't include some of the property openings, where we're opening many more properties at Life still by the end of the year. And these are in global locations where we're hiring Life crew. And we go through a very, very interesting recruitment process. We don't look firsthand at CVs. We look firsthand at personalities. And they come for talent show. and they show off their superpower. And they tell us, why they want to be at life, what life means to them, and what experiences do they want to create for live guests. So we've done this at our property in Philippines when we did hiring for our live crew in the Cebu and Manila properties. We've done that in Sydney, in Bondi Junction at our most recent opening. We've done that in Paris. And we're soon going to do that when we do our next opening in the UK and possibly another one in Melbourne. So I think these are a different way if you look at how we've done or we've re-gigged the way that we've brought live crew into the organization through very creative means. And the first was never to look at the CVs or what qualifications they have. Of course, right, for certain technical roles, it is important to have the relevant qualifications. But, when we're looking at front-facing guests or less technical roles where service and personality becomes
the soft skills.
Yes, exactly. The soft skills, the want to meet people and create a difference in people's lives. That's where we find skill sets like that very valuable. And we like bringing personalities like that into the team.
So why would you consider this a good time to join the sector for anyone who might consider it? In terms of the macro forces, economically speaking, how's it looking like for the sector and for your company specifically?
I think at the end of the day, right, everyone is a global citizen. Yes, there's many things that's happening around in the world, but people who enjoy hospitality have a penchant for travel. I think they also have a penchant for culture, to get to know people. They want to learn something new. And that's where, for us in Ascott, we are present in over 40 countries and where we have, just under 1,000 properties. We have many opportunities, right? And for live today, we are 35 properties. So I think that it's really for somebody, how do they want to grow their career? Is it something that's shorter term or is it something in the longer term? And that you can do within hospitality because you have the opportunity to travel. And as a Singapore brand, while we are a Singapore brand, we've grown global. So we have moved people from our teams around the world. We have colleagues who started out in France. Now they're working in the Middle East, for example, our head of Middle East, right? We have had people in Singapore who started at live. Now they're in live in Australia. And, for us, we do have task force opportunities where a little bit more short term, but ability to see the world because maybe, they still want to be in their home country. So with opportunities like that, we become something that's very interesting. Also at live, right? If you look at my profile, I do business development, but I also head the brand. So with me, and my team, what we're able to do is with these sort of opportunities that the company, right, like Ascott is able to do, the objective was really to provide different cross-functional exposure and career development opportunities. So that was something that we were looking to do because misconception within hospitality sometimes is that when you are in one function, you can only work in one function. But for us, we do have opportunities both at the property level, the regional level, and at the global level. So there are different things that could be done because, our stays are short stays with 1 day, 1 year. So it's really not a job per se. I think when you pick the hospitality industry, I think it's really a craft because like any great product or experience, it's really about needing strategy. I think creativity as well as empathy to get it right, especially in hospitality where people are at the core of what we do. Again, variety becomes something that is important for people in the hospitality industry. I think because people from this industry seem to not be able to keep still. And that cross-collaboration or that whole exchange of functions becomes something that bring about even more energy, bring about more opportunity for people to move around.
And the outlook for the sector and for your team at Live, how's it looking like? What's the outlook like? What's your sense of the outlook at least?
For us, we're still looking to grow. With what we've been doing, experience-led social living, that's something that we've got a lot of interest because, we're community drivers. We're looking to connect people. And in today's world, right, while it's very digital, people still want real connection. So when, when somebody says, is hospitality what they want to continue to do? I think that there's definitely a lot of opportunity to do so. I think that with what happens globally on the economic front, I think people still need to get out. I think post-COVID, that was something that, was very, very apparent, that people could not be kept indoors. A lot of trends have changed. Work from everywhere and anywhere has become something that is really not necessarily fitted, which makes it more interesting because there are more and more destinations that are growing, and hospitality still continues to be important.
Thanks so much, Adeline, for coming on our show and sharing all your experience with the sector.
Definitely excited. And, if anybody is interested to have a tour of life or, explore life, career with life, I'm happy to take this on. So feel free to reach out.
I'm Tay Hong Yi. And if you have any questions or personal stories to share about either your own brush with the hospitality sector, or if this episode has changed your mind and introduced you to a new sector you might wish to join, do reach out to us. You can find the contact details in the podcast show notes. Links to my articles, the Headstart newsletter, or my LinkedIn profile can all be found there too. This podcast episode is edited by Natasha Liu.
Send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or within our Straits Times app. Thanks for listening. Do note, all analyses, opinions, recommendations, and other information in this podcast are for general information purposes only and are not intended to be relied upon as financial advice. You should not rely on them in making any decision. Please consult a fully qualified financial advisor or professional expert for independent advice and verification. To the fullest extent permitted by law, SPH Media shall not be liable for any loss arising from the use of or reliance on any analyses, opinions, recommendations, and other information in this podcast. SPH Media accepts no responsibility or liability whatsoever that may result or arise from the products, services, or information of any third parties. All opinions expressed by participants in this podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of SPH Media.